Hey there, this is going to be a guide for the Pulverize Druid and what makes this build fun and great. We're going to look at the ability tree, legendary items and aspects, Paragon leveling, and how to play the build efficiently. So first of all, we're going to start with the ability tree. We're going to look at the skill tree. So first of all, you're willing to invest into the Earth Spike. I invested 3 points into it, and I think that is more than enough points for this ability. Then you are willing to get the nodes. So you're willing to get the enchanted Earth Spike, which will have a 10% chance to stun enemies for 2.5 seconds, and also get this other node, which is called Fierce Earth Spike, which will fortify for 4% of your base life whenever Earth Spike damages enemies who are stunned, immobilized, or knocked back. So this will help out with the build. The whole build is going to work on building as much fortify as you can, and once you have like more fortify, you also have like more defensive abilities, you will get more tanky, and you will dish out more damages at the same time with your core abilities and in general all of your abilities too. The next, as the core ability, you will be willing to choose Pulverize. This is going to be your main bread and butter. You build up the spirit with Earth and Spike, and then you dish out the damage with the Pulverize. For this ability, you are willing to get the nodes, which is both of the nodes, which are called Enchanted Pulverize. So your next Pulverize will overpower every 12 seconds while you remain healthy. So every time you remain healthy, it will build up the Pulverize and the overpower damage for your ability. So this will dish out tons of damage. Definitely want to get this one. As the second node, you can choose either of these. I went with the overpowered. It stuns the enemies for 2 seconds, but I would say this one is fairly good as well. If you're willing to receive less damage from the enemies, definitely get this one too. I prefer getting the Pulverize and the stun a little bit more, because it works better with this ability, because it will give you more damage on the stunned, immobilized, and knocked down targets. Also, you were going to be willing to get these nodes, which is called the Predatory Instinct. It increases your critical strike chance against close enemies by 2%. So get 1 point here, and you definitely want to get the Iron Fur. So you get 9 damage reduction while in Werebear form. This bonus persists for 3 seconds after leaving Werebear form. Don't you worry, you're not gonna leave Werebear form as long as you will have one of the legendary uniques, and you definitely want to get that one for this build specifically. Moving on to the next skill tree is going to be you want to invest at least 1 point in Earthen Bulwark. This is one of the strongest defensive abilities for the Druid. I would highly recommend getting this one and getting both of these 2 nodes as well. So Earthen Bulwark makes you unstoppable with the enchanted Earthen Bulwark. You definitely want to get this one. What this does is it makes your character remove all crowd control impairing effects from elite packs and bosses and all of the sort of enemies you encountered throughout your game. So anytime you will get stunned, frozen, feared, or anything of the sort, you can always pop this ability and you will get out of that beneficial crowd control, and you can run away from the enemies or engage them and kill them off a lot faster than they kill you. Next node I would highly recommend is this one, Preserving Earthen Bulwark, which will do and give you the ability to fortify a little bit more while casting Earthen Bulwark. It will increase the fortify by 18% of your base life. So definitely get that one, highly recommend it. You want to invest 5 points into Debilitating Roar, which is also a great ability. Both gives you survivability and reduces the damage from the enemies as well, and also fortifies you. Main abilities are going to be working around the fortification and faster fortification buildup, because the more fortification you have, the less damage you receive, and the more damage you dish out with your abilities too. So definitely invest 5 points into this one. You will definitely be interested in having more points into the ability. As the nodes go, you would definitely want to get the enchanted Debilitating Roar, which will also fortify you for 22% of your base life. It will increase the fortification. Definitely get this one. I highly recommend getting this one because it also heals you for 4% of your maximum life. So if you run out, for example, out of potions, so you can always use this one as long as you have the spell ready. So definitely worth using, but in general speaking, with this build, you will rarely drop below 50% of your health, unless you're very unlucky in getting cornered or getting a lot of crowd control effects on you. But definitely get this one. I used it. It works great. It heals you up a lot. Wonderful ability and wonderful node too. So as far as this tree goes, we're skipping and we're not using any of the abilities, because I don't think the abilities are that great and that necessary for this build. So we're going and moving on to the next tree, which is called the Raft tree. You definitely want to get the Crushing Earth, which gives you the chance to deal 15% increased damage to slowed, stunned, immobilized, or knocked back enemies. So the more crowd controls you have on the enemy, the more damage you will deal. 15% is a significant amount of an increase. Definitely get this node, following up with the Stone Guard, which will give you, while you have Fortify for over 50% of your maximum life, your Earth skills will deal 12% increased damage. Both wonderful nodes, definitely get those. It increases the damage of your skills significantly. You will dish out like tons of damage by having these two fully invested. Also, I use these two abilities, which one is called Mending. While in Werebear form, you receive 15 additional healing from all sources, so it works wonders with Debilitating Roar and this node specifically. Then you will want to get the Provocation node as well. When you remain in Werebear form for at least 20 seconds, your next skill will overpower. So definitely also a good one, since you're always going to be in Werebear form, so this is going to build up pretty quickly, and you will be dishing out a lot of damage with the Pulverize abilities as well. Highly recommend getting Trample and investing 5 points into it. Wonderful ability, lets you escape the enemies. What Trample does basically, it just makes you run in the bear form and sprint for a lot of the distance that you can cover up, and basically it covers up a lot of distance. So it also knocks back enemies into terrain, which deals additional bonus damage, so it helps out as an escaping tool, and both as in charging into enemies and dishing out a fairly significant amount of damage, which is even bigger if you knock the enemy back into walls and any other sort of terrain. Get the notes too. The enhanced Trample deals 150 bonus damage. This bonus is reduced by 50% for each enemy hit after that first. Definitely worth using. The first enemy usually is going to be an elite. You will deal a lot of damage to the elite, and you're gonna knock down a little bit of the smaller enemies around him and dish out like 50% less damage for each enemy you hit. So it's still worth investing in this node, and definitely worth investing in Natural Champ, because casting Champ grants 20% base life as Fortify. So basically most of your abilities that you're going to be using are going to give you Fortification as well. Moving on to the ultimate skill tree, you will definitely be willing to go with Grizzly Rage. One of the best abilities as far as the ultimate ones go, gives you a lot of damage, gives you a lot of crit, gives you a lot of damage reduction as well. So what does Werebear Grizzly Rage do? It turns you into Werebear for 15 seconds, gaining 20% bonus damage and 20% bonus damage reduction. Damage bonus is increased by 3% each second while in this form. The longer you stay, the better the effects. You definitely want to get both of the nodes. First one is going to make you unstoppable, which will also be saving you in a lot of situations from crowd control enemies or elite packs. And the next node is Supreme Grizzly Rage. Gain 8% base life as Fortify per second. Helps you out build up the Fortification as faster too. Also, these 3 nodes I would highly recommend, because these are like all defensive ones and also give you a chance to build up a lot more Fortification. So first one is Defensive Posture. It increases the amount of Fortify you gain from all sources by 15%. 15% is definitely a lot. Definitely want to get this one and get 3 points into this. Big Hide is the next one. Whenever you are stunned, immobilized, or knocked down, Fortify for 19% base life. Definitely a wonderful ability during those situations when you didn't have the chance to build up Fortification, and then by any sort and means or accident you get dragged into crowd control effects. So it builds up a lot of Fortification just to give you a little boost on the survivability, and once you leave the crowd control, you will dish out more damage as well. Next one, and highly recommended, is the Unrestrained. Reduce the duration of crowd control and bearing effects by 9%. Triple this effect while you have Fortified over 50% of your maximum life. So if you have like a lot of Fortify already built up, you will spend less time during crowd control effects. Definitely get this one, highly recommend it. Elite packs are being crazy at later stages of the game. They have a lot of the effects. Usually you encounter like 3 elite packs and each of them has a different ability. 2 of them usually have the crowd control one, and it can easily kill you if you don't have this one, or you don't have the any of the abilities which let you and prevent you from escaping with the unstoppable effect. And as far as the key passive, I would highly recommend Earthen Might. Like a hit damage, enemies with Earth skill has up to 5% chance to restore all of your spirit, cause your attacks to be guaranteed critical strikes for 5 seconds. This lucky passive definitely works quite frequently and quite often. So highly recommend spending in this one, because one ability might give you instant fill up on your spirit regeneration, basically giving you a full spirit bar, and definitely you can dish out like more pulverizes that way. This ability also grants you the chance to increase the critical strikes by 10%, and also gives you the target to stun the target, immobilize, or if the target is stunned, immobilized, or knocked back. So definitely one of the best key passives. You can go with Arsa and Strength, but I definitely highly recommend with this one, because it works well with your abilities and your legendaries and the legendary aspects. Because most of the legendary aspects or legendary items will turn your abilities into Earthen abilities. So highly recommend going with Earthen Might, just because of the insane amount of spirit regeneration, which just fills up the full bubble, and you can dish out more Pulverize. So now we're moving on to the legendaries and the aspects of the legendaries. So Vasily's Prayer is the first legendary I would highly recommend. You will only get this one from level 50 to level 70, and from level 70. From 50 you get it in a sacred form, and from level 70 you will get it in ancestral form. So you will be able to use the earth skills in bear form. So the next legendary aspect or legendary item well, basically you can only get the legendary item. You can't get the aspect, and you can't extract the aspect from unique items. So this one is going to be this Insatiable Fury, one of the best unique items that you can actually get. And this works very well with the build. So what it does, it turns you into Werebear constantly. Basically you will always be a Werebear. You will never change into a human form, unless you're visiting the town and you want to chat with your fellow traders and all of that, human beings. So it's the only place you will be changed into a human is once you enter the town, or you ride your horsey. Anyways, so this one gives you the Werebear form is now your true form, and you will always be a Werebear, and also gain +2 ranks to all Werebear skills. So +2 ranks is the beneficial thing for this item, because it will increase the pulverize damage and all of the other effects of the bear skills too. Next legendary aspect or legendary item I would highly recommend is having this aspect on, which is your core skills deal up to 30% from 20 to 40% increased damage based on your amount of Fortify. It can increase even higher, I think. The range is bigger than 20-40. I think you can go up to 50 if you're lucky enough to get the item. But this one is definitely good. The more fortification you will have, the more damage you will dish out. And you will clearly see the difference when you don't have any Fortifier up, and once you have like full half a bar, and the full bar is just will be dishing out crazy amounts of damage. Highly recommend this one. This is the one of the mandatory ones. You don't want to change it. You definitely want to have this one on your build, on one of your legendary items, or imprinted on one of your legendary items. Moving on to the next one. Since I was playing hardcore, I was using this one, and I think this one is very good for a defensive one. So the duration of Earthen Bulwark is increased by 6 seconds. In addition, killing an enemy with Earth skills replenishes your Earthen Bulwark's barrier. So definitely one of the better ones. It not only increases the Earthen Bulwark's duration by 6 seconds, but it also can increase it even longer, and increasing the absorb shield much more too by using the Earth skills. So definitely one of the better ones to use if you want to use defensive. There's an alternative item, which is the Temerity leggings. I would highly recommend getting these two. You can use both of these work fantastically. I prefer the Earthen Bulwark a little bit more than this one, but this one was working fairly well too. So what does Temerity do? The effects that heal you beyond 100% life grant you a barrier up to from 40 to 80% of your maximum life that lasts for 8 seconds. It gives you a lot of a barrier defensive. So basically it gives you a big barrier, especially once you're at full life and you heal up on full life. So debilitating roar will help you out to get the effect. Healing potions will help you out to get the effect as long as you remain at full health. Definitely works out in getting you a little bit of a boost on the damage, but I would definitely say that this one is definitely a little bit better. But if you get this item and you don't want to use the Earthen Bulwark, highly recommend using this one as well. Moving on, so next item I used as the aspect is the boots, and I am using the damage from Earth skill slow enemies hit by 45% for 5 seconds. So it can go from 25 to 50%. I'm using this one because it increases the damage from the crowd control enemies. So I definitely highly recommend using this. There are a few alternatives that you could use. One of them is the critical strikes grant you movement speed. This is definitely good for clearing out the dungeons faster and moving a little bit faster in your form too, because the Werebear form is a little bit slower on the side. But you can also get it just from getting the better boot effect. But in general, you might consider this one, but I think this one is just better. Also, another one that you might consider is when you hit a crowd control enemy, there is a 40% chance for that crowd control effect to spread to another unaffected enemy. This one is good if you're willing to just spread the effect, but usually the enemies die a lot quicker, so there is not a need to spread it, because also the Earth Spike does reach quite a few enemies if you damage them and if you target them properly. So I would say this is the strongest one. You can consider this one, but it's not that mandatory. This one is just definitely stronger. Okay, moving on to the weapon legendary aspect. I'm using the Pulverize. Pulverize creates a shockwave that travels forward, dealing from 120 to 200 of its damage to targets in the path. One of the strongest and one of the rarest. At least I didn't get this legendary as often as I did get most of others, so I believe this one is one of the rarest ones, but definitely one of the strongest. So what it does, every time you use Pulverize, it will create a shockwave which travels forward and deals a lot of damage, so definitely want to get this one. I highly recommend using it on the weapon, because you will get a bigger percentage rather than using it on the ring or on the necklace. Because if you're using it on the ring or on the necklace, the damage goes from 50 to 100%. And if you're using it on the weapon, it goes from 120 to 200. As you can see, I got lucky and I got the max amount of the damage. So definitely you want to go with that one. Okay, moving on to the necklace. I'm using the Pulverize is now also a nerf skill. After casting Pulverize, Tectonic Spikes continue to deal 200, almost 3k damage over 2 seconds. So what it does is, once you use Pulverize, you create a little circle in the area where you casted Pulverize, and it deals tectonic damage. So Tectonic Spikes continue to earthshake the ground, and they deal damage over 2 seconds. So these two work so well together, and especially if you're going to be close to the enemies, they're gonna get both by the Tectonic Spikes and both the Shockwave. So more damage the closer the enemy is to you, because Shockwave creates like a Shockwave in a pretty close range to yourself. You can't like smash it anywhere else. I will show you it in the build gameplay. Okay, moving on, the next ability of the aspect I would highly recommend using is which increases the duration of Grizzly Rage from 1 to 5 seconds. In addition, critical strikes while Grizzly Rage is active increase critical strike damage by 10% for the duration. I highly recommend using this on the ring, but you can also use it on the weapon, which will increase the duration from 1 to 10 seconds. So you can get 10 seconds in total. But I prefer having the shockwave damage a little bit higher. 5 seconds is, in my opinion, is more than enough for this legendary aspect. And as the last aspect, I would highly recommend attacking enemies with a basic skill increases the damage of your next core skill caused by 10%. It can go up even higher even on the ring if you imprint it on from another item which had a bigger percentage. I had an item which had like 16%, so you had to do like 2 Earth Spikes in order to get 30% increased damage on your core ability. Currently, you will have to do 3 Earth Spikes in order to get the 30 attack damage. So you do 1, 2, 3 Earth Spikes, and you cost the Pulverize ability, and it will deal 30% more damage. Definitely a good and highly recommend using this one too. Also, up to level 50, you will be willing to use this one on the helmet, most likely. So this one grants you, when you have Fortify, your Earth skills gain plus 3 ranks. So it definitely helps out with the damage and survivability because it will increase your all of the Earthen skills. So it will increase the Trample by 3, it will increase the Blazing Roar by 3, Pulverize by 3, and you will be dishing out a lot more damage with those abilities too. So highly recommend using this one up to level 50. From level 50, or if you're lucky, you will get this unique legendary. Then once you get this one, definitely use this one instead. Spirit Boons. Before we move on to stats, I will talk a little bit about the Spirit Boons. Once you unlock all of these, from the first one, I would highly recommend using the Awareness. You take 10 reduced damage from elites, 10% attack speed, and gain 30% critical strike damage. These two, in my opinion, are the best. Get these two. You're getting the Energize. Lucky hits, dealing damage has up to 15% chance to restore 10 spirit. You would be willing to get the Masochist, because critical strikes while shapeshifting skills heal you for 3 maximum life. So definitely get this one. It will heal you up. You will get more survivability too. Okay, let's move on to the stats now. As far as core stats go, definitely go with Willpower. It will increase your damage by a lot, increase your healing by a lot, and increase your overpower damage by quite a lot. The second stat I would highly recommend getting and using more is the Intelligence one, because it increases resource regeneration, and it also gives you more survivability against resistance to all elements. The next stat you might be willing to get is Dexterity, because it will increase your critical strike chance, which is always nice, and also dodge chance, which is a nice addition for survivability, because a lot of enemies are going to be hitting pretty hard, even if you have like full Fortify, but dodge chance prevents you from getting hit in general. The Strength one is probably the fourth one I would highly go for. It increases the armor. You can get armor from a lot of sources. You get it from the gear, you get it from the sockets, but definitely also pretty good to have more armor on your character, because you will receive less damage from basic hits from the enemies. Okay, let's move on to the offensive ones. You highly want to focus critical strike damage. So the more critical strike damage you have, the more damage you will dish out. And also you want to get some additional critical strike chance. You want to get it up to 15%. If you get higher, it's okay. Just don't go overboard to get like 20. I don't think it's necessary. The next stat I would highly recommend stacking is the overpower damage. The more you have, the more damage you will dish out to the enemies. Vulnerable damage is always nice, but the next stat that you want to get from the offensive, and you want to build up on the stat and get it more frequently on your gear, is going to be the damage crowd control damage. You definitely want to get and build up this one, because every slow that you put on with the Earth Spike will increase the damage on your Pulverize as well. Skills that you really want to get is damage while fortified. The more fortified you have, the more damage you will dish out, and you will be building fortifications and fortified definitely very quickly. So you definitely want to increase this one and get this stat as well from your gear or sockets. Damage while shapeshifted, definitely want to get these stats. Definitely want to get some stats from the damage while in Werebear form. Definitely want to get damage for the basic and core abilities. Basic ability is also pretty good because you will be building up spirit at some point, so you need that ability to be hitting harder too. So I would say both of these are definitely necessary. If you have like around 100 is more than enough on both abilities. You also want to build up damage on the with Earth skills, so you basically want to get this stat from your gear too, and damage with Werebear also is a necessary one to get from your gear. So these are like the main stats. The main stats for the offensives are, I will repeat myself, going to be critical strike damage, overpower damage, and damage versus crowd control. These three are major ones. Then damage with Werebear, damage with basic, damage with core, damage with Earth, and damage with Bear. Werebear are going to be secondary, but you do want to get those. Instead, you want to get those that are going to benefit you, basically. You can always change those at the Occultist if you get like gear and you want to change the stat. Also, you want to go as much as possible on the core stats, because those are also beneficial, especially the willpower. So now let's talk about the sockets. What sockets I would highly recommend? The sockets for the gear, I would highly recommend the blue ones, because they reduce the damage reduction while fortified, so you will have more tankiness to you. You can always use the red ones for the armor, it will give you more life, but in general I think the blue ones are better just for the survivability, because Later on during leveling, the higher you go, the more health you will increase with each level. As far as the weapon sockets go, you can always use the red ones, which will grant you overpower damage. But I would say that the blue ones are probably better because you get overpower damage from a lot of sources. Especially if you're going to use a two-handed mace, you already have like a lot of overpower damage from the weapon itself. If you're using a staff, then you probably will be willing to use the red ones because the staffs do give you more crowd control damage. But in general, you want to do this one because it increases the critical strike damage to crowd control enemy. As far as the necklace and the rings go, I would highly recommend using the skulls because they give you like the most amount of armor, and the more armor you have, the better it is, because the more armor you have, the less damage you will receive from the enemies. So it reduces physical damage taken from enemies of equal level by 42%. Okay, let's talk about Paragon levels. Anyways, you're gonna start at this node and you're just gonna move up. So first of all, I would highly recommend moving up like this, up to this node first. You will get more damage and maximum life. Then you go a little bit up too, you get the first glyph. The first glyph I would highly recommend getting the protector. Grants you more damage, willpower, and also additional bonus would be nice, but you won't get the additional bonus because there is not enough intelligence nodes to get the full beneficial effect. Because you need to get the nodes in the red squares, but there's not enough intelligence nodes around, so you don't get the chance to get the additional bonus. But in general, this glyph is just good enough without the additional bonus, so I highly recommend using that one. Later on, you will be willing to move up to this node and you get the more damage and willpower. You will get an additional bonus if you have more intelligence. So the more intelligence you build up throughout the trees, and if you reach like 170, you will get the additional bonus. So you will definitely reach the additional intelligence threshold, so I would highly recommend going up like this. Then you will be moving on to the board attachment. Once at the board attachment, you can attach another board. Before you attach the board, you will be able to rotate it. So I highly recommend rotating it like this, that the node would be closest to it. And the first node you will be willing to get is going to be the Urban Devastation. Your Earth skills will deal 30% increased damage to enemies afflicted by crowd control. So you definitely want to go and get this node as fast as possible and rotate the board until it's in this position here. So you just go first of all for this node, get that, then you move on to this node, or you can go to this node on higher levels because it's not as necessary to get it early on. So first of all, go here, get this one, then I highly recommend going here, going up, getting the Earth Power, increases the critical strike damage of Earth skills, willpower, and also the additional bonus will give you like more damage in Werebear form. Later on you can go for this one, but also I would recommend going for this one on higher level, not early on. So early on you basically, on this, you just go instantly to get the node, then you go to get this, then I highly recommend going for the glyph, which increases and use the Werebear glyph, which increases damage while in Werebear form. You gain also 10 damage reduction while in Werebear form, and for each willpower, basically you increase, not each willpower, but for 40 willpower around the red squares, and you will definitely be able to get those, because I got those, so you will get additional bonus, which is you gain 10 damage reduction while in Werebear form, so it makes you a little bit more tanky too. Next node I would highly recommend going for is this one, so you get this one and you get the damage to crowd control enemies. So I'm gonna move a little bit slower through these so you can see each node that I use the point in. Then I highly recommend going up and going for this node, rare node, and getting all the blue ones especially. Also get the blue ones in this one. These are very good because it increases their skill damage, critical strike damage to crowd control enemies, and every single one will increase the damage and critical strike damage as well. Next one I would highly recommend going from this point up to this, because it's a shorter route than going like this, and also you get a lot of willpower along the way. The next board you will be willing to attach is going to have the legendary aspect after spending called Ancestral Guidance, which after spending 75 spirit you will deal 30 increased damage for 5 seconds. Once using Pulverize, you will be losing a lot of spirit and you will be spending a lot of spirit. So that way you will be dishing out more damage as well. So I highly recommend using this one as the second legendary node. Also rotate it so the node is on this side and on this spot. So you definitely want to go instantly for that one, get this, After you get that one, you definitely want to go and get all of these blue ones, and especially the yellow one. It will increase your maximum spirit. Then your road will take you going like this up to this node, which will increase this maximum spirit and also maximum life. Highly recommended. It deals a lot of damage. Definitely a great node to use. Then, depending on if you're gonna be going in softcore or in hardcore. If you're going in softcore, I would highly recommend just going up to the glyph and getting this one, because it will increase the damage. Also get all the blue ones. And as the glyph, you will definitely want to use Dominate, so it increases overpower damage. And when you overpower an enemy, all damage that they take from you is increased by 12% for 5 seconds. It's the additional bonus for collecting 25 intelligence nodes, and these are pretty easy because there's like this one which gives you like 7 intelligence, and it also increases your overpower damage once you reach the beneficial threshold for the additional bonus effect. Then you can go up to this node, and I would highly recommend going here because the core skills damage and basic skill damage will be increased with each blue node, and especially the yellow one. The yellow one is insanely good. It will increase your earth spikes damage and also your pulverize damage as well. So highly recommend going for these as soon as possible, just to increase the damage. Next, I would highly recommend going to this board attachment because it's way closer than the rest. Or maybe not the closest one, but it gives you like more beneficial stats. So highly recommend going to this side. And on this side, I would highly recommend going for the legendary node, which is called Inner Beast, which gives you the effect of after shapeshifting, your spirit costs are reduced by 10% for 5 seconds, up to 30%. You will not be using this one from level 50, so you get this board basically because they're good rare nodes, not because it is a good legendary node. Since with this build, you are not shape-shifting at all, so I would not recommend using this one unless you're gonna change the helmet and you're going to go for the vulnerable damage instead. So in that case, I would then highly advise getting this one. But in general, since for this build we're not using that, we're gonna go for this node first, so we are going to get maximum life and 100 armor. Get the blue nodes, they give you like 50 armor and 2% life. 2% life gives you 100 life in general. Then I highly recommend going for this node, which is called Havoc, which increases critical strike damage and 10 physical damage. Get all the blue nodes too, will increase the damage significantly. After you get these, I would highly recommend going up to the glyph socket. Get as much intelligence along the way. And as the glyph, I would highly recommend using Undaunted, which gives you 10% damage while fortified, and you gain up to 10 damage reduction the more fortify you have. So it gives you like more damage while you have fortify, and more damage reduction while you have more fortified on you as well. It's easy to get the intelligence node, so would highly recommend just getting this one here. Get this one, definitely will increase the damage and will give you some additional willpower. Then next you will definitely be willing to go and get the rare node called Shapeshifter, which increases your shapeshifting skills damage and 10 willpower. Get the blue nodes as well. After that, highly recommend going down here, getting the attack speed node, which is called Nimble, and increases the damage as well. Get the blue nodes too. The faster you dish out the earth spikes, the more damage, and the faster you build up the spirit, the more pulverize you can actually dash out later on. Okay, so you're gonna go then to the next board attachment, and you are willing to get the one which is called Survival Instincts. Although this is a good one if you would be receiving a lot of damage and would be dropping lower than 50%. But this build is fairly tanky enough, so you rarely drop below like 50% of your health. So you're not gonna benefit from this effect. So just get the board mainly for the rare nodes, and the rare node which you're willing to go for is going to be called Arsine. So Werebear skill damage will increase, and you will increase the damage on your overpowered damage. So basically, I'm gonna show you this in slower each board separately, so you can just get a better look at the nodes and which nodes I already have used and invested in. For softcore players, I would highly probably recommend not even getting the additional survivability nodes, just go for the damage ones, because this build is already tanky enough. But for hardcore players, I would highly recommend like getting a few additional defensive ones. And yeah, so this is gonna be it for the Paragon aspect level. Okay, so let's move on to the gameplay then. So once you enter or do world content, the gameplay for the build is pretty simple. You want to build fortification as soon as possible and as much as possible, but I highly recommend not using all of the abilities at the same time, because you want to keep at least the Urban Bulwark or the Trample for those situations when you get crowd controlled or there is a possible danger for you dying. So basically you go to the enemies, you do free earth spikes, you cast your core ability Pulverize, you build up the damage that way. There are stats which are also going to increase your damage by quite a lot. So yeah, you just do free abilities on the earth spike, and then you finish up with the Pulverize. It will build up the fortification. The more you build it up, the more damage you will dish out. So now I just want to build up the fortification. This is how it looks. You build it up by using the abilities, and the more the fill bar fills up, the more damage you will be dishing out. So at some point you will just be knocking the enemies and one-shotting the enemies fairly quickly and easily. There's not much else going on. Once encountering elite packs, I would highly recommend using Debilitating Roar and Grizzly Rage at the same time, keeping Urban Bulwark and Trample for escaping situations or if you get caught up with the crowd controls. So basically, once you reach an elite pack, what you do is you do a Debilitating Roar and you use Grizzly Rage. 1, 2, 3, Earth Spikes, and then you do the core ability. And you dish out a lot of damage that way. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And you finish up the enemies. Also use evasions to avoid the enemies. Use Grizzly Rage. Whenever it's off cooldown, it increases the damage by significantly. See, you critical strike pretty often and pretty much a lot. You deal a lot of damage. The critical strikes go for 400 to 500 to 600k. Usually you will be one-shotting the enemies. Especially on the passive build-up. So yeah, the basic gameplay is pretty simple. You encounter an elite pack, you do the Debilitating Roar and Grizzly Rage at the same time. It increases your survivability, it reduces the damage of the enemies, it increases your damage as well. And you start pummeling them with 3 Earth Spikes, and then continuing with one of the Pulverize. And you keep repeating the same effect. If you see that you're building up the Pulverize a lot quicker, you just start smashing and using more Pulverize. And start building the fortification. So I hope this build helps you out, because I had a lot of fun playing with this build on hardcore. It definitely is one of the strongest builds you can actually make. There might be some slight changes that you can make, but anyways, I would like to thank you very much for watching the video. If you enjoyed the content, consider subscribing to the channel, leaving a like, leaving a comment, ringing that notification bell, and I'll be seeing you around in the next one. Have a nice day or evening, and I'll see you around. Bye bye.